Lieutenant Commander Tessa Monroe stood on the edge of the dock at Naval Station T West, arms crossed as her eyes swept across the water. Her patrol vessel, the Artemis, bobbed gently in the tide. It was a modest boat too small for its assigned mission, too old for any serious fleet deployment. Tessa had seen better ships mothballed and forgotten. But this was the one they gave her. This was the one she was supposed to take offshore for routine surveillance. She wasn't fooled. The Gulf air was thick with salt and humidity, and beneath its heaviness was a tension she couldn't shake. Her orders were vague: observe strange maritime activity near the drop zone, log any anomalies, and return without incident. That was it. No detailed threat assessment, no intel handoff, no satellite feeds, just her, a skeleton crew, and a patch of ocean nobody wanted to be responsible for. A setup, if she'd ever seen one. "Morning, ma'am," came a voice from behind her. Petty Officer Maddox, young and green, saluted sharply as he approached, clipboard in hand. Ships loaded and ready. Crews aboard. All systems functional well, mostly. Mostly? Tessa asked, arching an eyebrow. Navigation's a little glitchy, probably a loose wire. Engineer says we can patch it mid-transit. She nodded slowly, but didn't answer. Glitches on day one were never just glitches. Double-check the backup system, she said. Manually, not digitally. I don't trust diagnostics right now. Maddox looked puzzled, but nodded. Aye, Commander. Tessa boarded Artemis, her boots thudding softly against the metal deck. The boat was lean, stripped down, and clearly patched together. It had the vibe of a half-forgotten tool pulled from the back of a shed. Her assigned crew was small, 5 sailors including herself, all low profile, all seemingly temporary. A few had solid records. Others barely had any files at all. It didn't feel right. None of it did. Inside the bridge, she took her place at the helm while the crew prepared to depart. Radar blinked. Weather was clear. Currents were mild. Everything looked safe, but safe was exactly what worried her most. Let's move out, she said into the intercom. The Artemis eased from the dock and began its slow journey past the breakwater. Once they hit open sea, the waves slapped harder, rolling the boat with more authority. Still, the vessel moved well. If the Navy wanted this mission to fail, they were hiding it well so far. 3 hours in, the first anomaly arrived. A faint flicker on the radar. Unidentifiable. Not a ship, not a buoy, not a storm system. Just a tiny electronic ripple there. Then gone. Could be interference, said Petty Officer Grant, the radar tech. He seemed bored. Tessa leaned over the monitor. Interference doesn't come and go with that precision. Keep it on a rolling loop. She left the bridge and headed below deck. Something about this entire operation made her skin itch. She moved to the engine room. Everything was humming, but the sound was off, too rhythmic, too consistent. She asked Rodriguez, the boat's young mechanic, about the engine tuning. Everything's clean, Mom. She's running smoother than I expected, actually. That was the second red flag. This boat was a patchwork of old Navy bones. It wasn't supposed to run smooth. Someone had worked on it recently, without logging it. She moved to the underside. Inspection port, where a reinforced glass panel let her view the hull's undercarriage from inside. Tessa peered down and froze. There, just under the keel, affixed near the rudder, was a small metal device blinking red. It wasn't rusted. It wasn't old. It was too clean. Too new. She knew exactly what it was. A tracking beacon. Government issue. Covert ops level. Her mouth went dry. She ran her fingers across it. No marine growth. No damage. This wasn't an old tag someone forgot to remove. It had been planted recently on purpose. She rose, heart pounding. Whoever placed it knew exactly where they were sending her. And they weren't just tracking her. For intel, they were tracking her to make sure she disappeared. Back in the bridge, the communication system began to blink. "Ma'am," Grant said, frowning. "We just lost satellite uplink." "What?" Tessa's voice was sharp. "No signal. Weather's clear. No interference. It's just gone. Switch to backup. No response either." Like someone flipped a switch. Tessa stared at the blank screen. That was the third red flag, and it was glowing bright. "All hands to secure positions," she said into the ship's PA. "This isn't a drill. Begin full system diagnostic. Isolate power. I want manual control on all essential systems." Her crew exchanged glances, uneasy. Maddox approached her, voice low. "Ma'am, should we turn back?" Tessa looked at him, and for a moment she wanted to agree. But then she remembered what was at stake, that the mission was fake. But the threat? That was real. "No," she said. "If we head back now, we're doing exactly what they want. We stay the course. No more autopilot. We go analog from here." Tessa locked eyes with each crew member, one by one. "Something's coming. And when it does, I need to know who's with me." Maddox and Grant nodded. Rodriguez hesitated, but eventually followed suit. Outside, the sky remained deceptively calm. But below the surface, something moved. A soft ping vibrated across the sonar screen low, precise and rhythmic. Tessa leaned in, her voice quiet, almost a whisper. "They're already here." Tessa stared at the sonar screen as the ping repeated, soft, cold, too deliberate. It wasn't ocean noise. It wasn't a natural echo. This signal had a rhythm, a pattern. Something or someone was out there, and it was following them. "Grant," she said calmly, "log that pattern. Loop it. Any chance that's one of ours?" Grant tapped quickly, comparing the frequency to known profiles. "Not in our registry. Not civilian either. It's military, but encrypted in a way I've never seen." Tessa nodded, already thinking 5 moves ahead. "It's a drone. Probably underwater. Could be unmanned. Could be private sector military tech." "You think it's Navy?" "I think someone with Navy access wants us to think it's not." Rodriguez entered the bridge, wiping his hands on an oily rag, nervous energy buzzing off him like static. "Commander, I checked the power lines again. Everything looks good. But I swear the feed's being looped." "Looped?" "Yeah, like someone's feeding us a false normal. I can't prove it yet, but the power isn't fluctuating naturally." Tessa's jaw tensed. A ghost chip. A ghost signal. Ghost data. She'd seen operations like this before, but never from this side. Never as the target. She stepped outside. Onto the deck. The wind had picked up slightly, but the sea remained deceptively calm. Waves lapped gently against the Artemis, but the tension in the air was growing something primal. The quiet before the hunt. From the crow's nest, Maddox called down. "Ma'am, you need to see this." Tessa climbed quickly, reaching the top and grabbing the binoculars Maddox handed her. He pointed off the starboard bow. "There, low wake, just breaking the surface, fast." She scanned, and there it was. A thin ripple cut through the water. About 100 meters away, barely visible. No hull, no shadow, but it moved like it had intention. Not a dolphin. Not a wave. No sound. It was just there, gliding like a blade beneath silk. Tessa snapped the binoculars down. "Get below." Now. Maddox didn't ask why. He moved. Tessa descended in seconds and hit the com switch. "Brace for potential impact. This is not a drill." Grant looked up. "Is it surfacing?" "No," she said. "It's tracking. Waiting. For orders. Whoever's behind this wants to cripple us, not sink us outright. Not yet." That's when the engine began to sputter. Rodriguez's voice burst over the internal speaker. Port engine just lost half output. I'm rerouting, but this feels remote-controlled, Commander, like someone's throttling us from the outside. Tessa's thoughts raced. Pull power to all non-essentials. Go fully manual. Disconnect external sensors. We'll lose radar, Grant said. Lose it. I'd rather be blind than fed lies. In the dim glow of emergency lights, the Artemis shuddered. A mechanical groan echoed through the hull metal against pressure. Something was pressing against them. Rodriguez burst in, breathless. You need to see this. He handed her a small, waterproof casing. This was magnetically sealed near the hull intake. I only noticed it because I was checking the bypass valve. Tessa opened the casing. Inside, a secondary beacon, far more sophisticated than the first military-grade, encrypted, triple-shielded, and unmistakably Navy-issued. It hadn't just been tracking them. It was relaying telemetry, possibly even remote control commands. This wasn't simple surveillance. This was targeting. She stared at the device like it had teeth. Someone tagged us for destruction, she said. And they wanted deniability. Maddox stepped into the room, pale. Commander, if this is internal, what do we do? We break the pattern, she said. If they expect us to fail, we survive. If they expect us to turn back, we go forward. And if they think we're alone, we're not? Grant asked. Tessa gave a half smile. Not if I make the right call. She stood, marched to her cabin, and opened the safe under her bunk. Inside was an object she'd hoped never to use, a slim reinforced case marked with a red line. She unlocked it, revealing a single satellite uplink device. No buttons, no screen. Just one biometric scanner and a sealed emergency trigger. This wasn't standard Navy equipment. It had been handed to her 4 years ago by someone who shouldn't have trusted her, but did. Admiral Marcellus Ray, retired. Disgraced publicly, but whispered about behind closed doors as the man who exposed $1 billion ghost operation before being buried alive by politics. He'd told her, in a quiet moment after her own tribunal, if they ever turn on you, use this. It doesn't dial Washington. It dials justice. She placed her thumb on the scanner. The device vibrated, beeped once, then lit up faintly. A single green dot blinked in rhythm. Connected. A crackling voice emerged seconds later. 7 Bravo. Authenticate. Tessa's mouth was dry. This is Lieutenant Commander Monroe, Artemis patrol vessel, under assault. Confirming active sabotage. Ghost drone engagement. Navy-grade beacons planted internally. Code. Nightglass Echo 7. Silence. Then a slow breath on the other end. You waited long enough, Tessa, came the grizzled voice of Marcellus Ray himself. She exhaled. You're alive. Barely, he replied. And if you're calling me, you won't be for long, unless I move. Hold position. Help is closer than you think. They're using private drones, she said. Military design. Probably contracted through Graystrand or Aegis Defense. Of course they are, Ray muttered. Kent? I don't have hard proof. But yes, he's running a cleanup op disguised as a surveillance mission. A pause, then Ray's voice changed, sharper, quieter. You were bait. Tessa clenched her jaw. That's what I suspected. I always told you, the ocean hides more than wrecks. Yeah, well, this time the wreck they're aiming for is me. You're not going to be the wreck, Ray said. You're going to be the reason this makes the news. The device went dark. Tessa stared at it for a long second, then turned and walked back to the bridge. All right, she said calmly. We're not running. We hold position. Strip power to the engines. Lock down core systems. We go cold and quiet. You think they'll leave? Maddox asked. No, she said. I think they'll come in closer. And then what? Then, she said, they find out they were never the hunters. Outside, a wave rose, unnaturally high-chopped not by wind, but by displacement. Something was surfacing, and Tessa Monroe was ready. At the Pentagon, Rear Admiral Gregory Kent stood in his windowless office, sipping black coffee from a chipped Naval Academy mug. Behind him, a massive digital screen streamed encrypted satellite telemetry. The feed displayed the Artemis barely. A blip off the Florida Keys. The patrol vessel wasn't supposed to still be floating. Its signal should have vanished an hour ago. Still transmitting, a contractor muttered beside him. Beacon 1's showing they've gone cold. Looks like Monroe figured something out. Kent didn't respond right away. He kept staring. At the feed, he had underestimated her once big mistake. He wouldn't do it again. The contractor, Jacob Weller from Graystrand Dynamics, cleared his throat. Sir, we could deploy the secondary drone. It carries heat seekers. Nothing lethal. Just enough to open the hull and force evacuation. Kent turned slowly. No evacuation. But no survivors, Kent snapped. The mission was black flagged for a reason. No loose ends. No tribunals. No dramatic courtroom nonsense. Sink the damn boat. Weller hesitated. There's still a chance she hasn't made contact outside. Our jammers are up. Kent's eyes darkened. Marcellus. Ray is a ghost, but ghosts don't sleep. She had one of his emergency links, I know it. If she activated it, Nightshade will know by now. That means we're on borrowed time. But this is contained, no public oversight. If we sink the Artemis and eliminate the asset, Kent raised a finger. The Artemis is a firecracker. Monroe is the match. But what we're sitting on here. He tapped the side of the encrypted file on his desk, marked Poseidon Ledger. ... is nuclear. If she lives, that file goes public. Weller's voice dropped. And the foreign contracts? They vanish with her, Kent said coldly. He tapped his earpiece. Deploy the drone. Full authorization. You are cleared to. Strike. Confirm kinetic engagement. Weller blinked. Sir, that's a kill order. Kent gave him a flat look. And that's a direct order. 20 miles offshore, Tessa Monroe stood at the bridge of the Artemis, staring through binoculars. At the water surface, the sonar pings had grown louder. Something had surfaced briefly minutes ago, just long enough to disturb the pattern of the waves. But then it submerged again. A waiting predator, Rodriguez spoke from behind her. Engines are cooled. We're silent. But if they've got heat-seeking or sonar-guided tech, we're a sitting duck. That's what I'm counting on. Tessa said. Grant approached from below deck with a jerry-rigged antenna slung over his shoulder. If you want a burst transmission, I can rig one. But we'd be visible. No, she said. They already know where we are. Let them come closer. Maddox peeked out from the crow's nest. Commander, I think they're circling. Tessa didn't move. Her eyes remained fixed on the water. They're confirming we're not transmitting. They want to finish this quiet. But we're not going to let them. A faint chirping from her pocket made her freeze. The red-labeled comms device buzzed again. She pulled it out, pressed a button. Admiral Ray's voice cut through, calm and grave. You've been targeted for full kinetic strike. Their drone has authorization. How long? She asked. 10 minutes, maybe less. Listen carefully. A destroyer is en route. Black flag, no insignia. You'll see it in your scope soon. A destroyer? She blinked. You're sending an entire warship? I'm not sending a rescue, Ray said. I'm sending justice. Commander Juno Ray is in command. Your daughter? Tessa asked. There was a moment of quiet. She's Nightshade's lead. And she's coming with orders you'll like. The line went dead again. Grant, hearing only half of it, raised an eyebrow. We're being extracted? Tessa shook her head. No, we're being leveraged. She pointed to the sonar. When that drone strikes, the Navy needs a reason to expose what's really going on. We're it. Rodriguez paled. We're bait. Tessa gave him a grim smile. We were always bait. The difference now is someone's finally watching. Outside, the water hissed, then erupted. A torpedo broke the surface, sleek and humming. It swerved unnaturally, adjusting mid-course. Not dungfire, not civilian. EMP torpedo, Grant shouted. Incoming. Tessa grabbed the mic. Hard starboard. Now, the Artemis swung violently as the torpedo veered, its tracker recalibrating. It hit the rear of the ship, not the hull, but the satellite tower, frying every onboard electronic system instantly. Dot lights went black. Screens died. Power drained from the bridge, but the ship stayed afloat. We're hit! Rodriguez shouted. Damage. Report? Tessa barked. Tower's gone. Engine controls disabled. No hull breach. No flooding. Tessa exhaled. Good. That was a warning shot. A warning shot? Maddox looked horrified. That nearly cooked us. They want confirmation, she said. They want to see our distress call. Make sure we're off-grid. They're setting up plausible deniability. Grant stared at the horizon. Commander, what happens when they decide they've waited long enough? They'll send a second drone, she said. That one won't miss. Back at the Pentagon, Kent received the report silently. He nodded once. First hit successful. No surface. Transmission detected. Artemis is now blind and floating. Excellent, Weller said, relieved. We send a second drone. Clean sweep. Kent raised his hand. No, we wait. Let the ocean do the killing. Plausible deniability only works if no evidence floats. But, wait. Kent turned to his screen, and something strange happened. A second feed lit up. Not the Artemis. A different vessel. Bigger. Faster. Heading toward her. Weller frowned. Who is that? The screen zoomed. No flag, no call sign. Just a black hole with no identifiers. Who the hell? Kent stepped closer. That's not one. Of ours. On the Artemis, the water split again, but this time, not from beneath. The distant roar of engines rolled across the sea as a sleek destroyer, matte black and unmarked, emerged from the haze. It cut across the waves like a razor. Within moments, it was visible to the naked eye. Tessa squinted. They're early. The ship slowed just beside the crippled Artemis. A small boarding craft detached and approached. Grant gripped the railing. Should we arm up? Tessa shook her head. No. Let them on. That ship doesn't fly a flag because it is the flag. Minutes later, the boarding craft arrived. 4 uniformed figures disembarked. The leader stepped forward, removing her helmet. Commander Juno Ray. Late 30s. Sharp eyes. Navy tattoo on her wrist, half hidden beneath a black ops sleeve. Must be Tessa Monroe, she said, voice crisp. Tessa saluted. Your Nightshade. I'm the part of the Navy they keep in the dark, until someone turns on the lights. Juno handed her a secure case. Tessa opened it. Inside, photos. Files, video clips, evidence of Kent's operations. Smuggled weapons. Contract bribes. Surveillance of whistleblowers. And a kill list with her name third from the top. Tessa looked up. Why me? Because you were loud. Then you got quiet. They thought you were done. Juno gave a dry smile. But you were just in the right spot. Tessa closed the case. So what happens now? Juno nodded toward the destroyer. We burn every name on that list, starting with the ones who gave the kill order. And for the first time since setting sail, Tessa felt something close to safety. No longer bait. Now she was the fuse. The Artemis creaked in protest as Commander Juno Ray's team secured the deck. Black uniforms, sealed crates, no visible rank. Tessa had seen enough Black Ops teams to know they operated in the shadows, under no flag, no oversight. These weren't guests. They were ghosts given permission to haunt. Juno moved with confidence, her eyes scanning every corner of the crippled patrol boat. She paused near the navigation station, where sparks still hissed from the torpedo strike. EMP drone? She asked. Tessa nodded. First shot was non-lethal. Precision strike. Took out our electronics, not the crew. That tells me they wanted us dead, but not immediately. They wanted you to sink, Juno said. No fire, no broadcast. Just gone. Grant hovered near the bulkhead, eyeing the Nightshade team warily. How do you find us? We didn't need to, Juno replied. You lit up half the Navy with that beacon. Rodriguez came up from below deck, holding the original tracking device. Found this under the intake valve. Whoever planted it knew exactly where to put it. Juno took it, inspected the casing. This isn't even standard issue anymore. It's been off books for at least 5 years. Graystrand's old tech. So Kent's fingerprints, Tessa muttered. Juno handed the beacon to her technician without comment. Admiral Kent's a careful man. He made sure nothing tied him to these operations, except the fact that we have all his purchase orders, back-channel messages, and kill authorizations on encrypted backups he thought were deleted. Tessa raised a brow. How did you get those? My father, Juno replied. He never really left the Navy. He just started digging deeper. Tessa stepped closer. What do you need from me? To live, Juno said bluntly. We need you to stay alive. Your name isn't just on the list. They considered you the most dangerous one of all. I was blacklisted, stripped of command. And you still didn't shut up, Juno said, cracking a grin. People like you are dangerous, because they don't need rank to be right. Tessa looked over the railing at the sea, still churning softly. They're going to come again. They already did, Juno said. You didn't notice the second drone because we intercepted it. Grant leaned forward. Intercepted? You mean? Juno's comms officer spoke up. The drone was destroyed 10 miles out. Full strike authorization was confirmed before we eliminated it. Rodriguez swallowed. So they were going to finish the job. They still might, Juno said. Kent's not the kind of man who takes a failed kill order personally. He takes it professionally. That's worse. Tessa turned toward her crew. We're out of commission. What now? Juno gestured toward her destroyer. We tow the Artemis and vanish for 72 hours. In that time, we initiate a full blackout operation. No comms, no radar, no civilian visibility. And then? Tessa asked. We flipped the script. Juno said, we're going to take the evidence we have and force the Navy's own hand. If we do it right, Kent won't see the knife until it's already in his back. Back in Washington, Rear Admiral Kent was losing patience. The Artemis's signal had gone fully dark, but no distress beacon. No black box ping. No debris. Weller entered the room again, face pale. Sir, something's wrong. Kent didn't look away from the screen. Tell me. We lost contact with Drone 2. Jammed? Destroyed. High-altitude thermal. Signature confirms missile engagement. Precision. Likely naval. Kent stood slowly. You're saying they were protected? I'm saying someone just burned $30 million of untraceable hardware to protect a ghost ship with no value on paper. Kent turned to the room's corner console and keyed in a command. Up popped a feed of internal dossiers 1, labeled Project Quiet Current. Beneath it, a file marked Nightshade. He stared at it for a moment, then turned to Weller. I want every asset watching Marcellus Ray. If he's behind this, I want a full surveillance net within the hour. Weller hesitated. Sir, we've tried that. He doesn't show up on anything. No power, no digital footprint, no. Nothing. Like he's vanished. No one vanishes, Kent muttered. They just hide behind people with more to lose. He paced. If Nightshade is active, we're out of time. Weller blinked. Then what do? We force their hand. We leak part of the Artemis mission to the press, blame it on Monroe. Say she went rogue. Turn her into a liability. Discredit her? No, Kent said coldly. We turn her into a threat. Below deck on the destroyer Valkyrie, Juno handed Tessa a sealed tablet. Inside were full dossiers, Kent's contacts, shipping routes, contractor lists, falsified missions. Everything. You're the whistleblower now, Juno said. But we can't use a courtroom. We need you to go direct to brass. Tessa shook her head. They'll bury me before I reach the steps of the Pentagon. We're not asking permission, Juno replied. We're sending it straight to the Fleet Command Council. All of them, simultaneously, with your name signed. Tessa scrolled through the documents. Some she recognized. Others were worse than she imagined: weaponized biotech shipments, satellite blackouts during foreign operations, civilian cover-ups. God, she whispered. They were selling off our systems like used spare parts. Juno leaned forward. You see why Kent wanted you sunk. Tessa stared at the data and made her decision. I'll sign it. But I want to be there when it hits their desk. You will be, Juno promised. But you won't walk in through the front door. 3 days later, the Artemis resurfaced off the coast of Norfolk, Virginia, escorted by the Valkyrie. At dawn, without any radio signal or announcement, a black SUV pulled into the back entrance of the Fleet Command building. Inside, Tessa Monroe, dressed in full uniform, escorted by Juno Ray and 2 Nightshade agents. Security froze. One general murmured, "She's dead." We got the report. No, Juno said, producing credentials. You got a story. Here's the truth. They handed over the encrypted drive. Within 10 minutes, 6 senators, 4 admirals, and a dozen Pentagon advisors were in a private briefing room. 10 minutes after that, Kent received a single message. You missed. And for the first time in years, he felt something rare. Panic. Admiral Marcellus Kent watched the encrypted footage leak across internal military networks like wildfire. Classified documents, forged contracts, drone logs, all stamped with his authorization. His carefully constructed house of shadows was collapsing in daylight. He paced his office inside the Pentagon's restricted command wing, face unreadable but fists clenched behind his back. His aide, Commander Weller, stood silently, too afraid to speak. How many people have seen the data? Kent asked finally, his voice like cold steel. Too many, Weller replied. By the time we intercepted the stream, it was already mirrored on 3 private defense servers. We traced one to a secure Navy judge's network. The other, Kent waved a hand. I know where it went. He turned to the tinted window overlooking Arlington. She survived. I don't know how, but she did. Weller said nothing. Kent continued, almost to himself. They were never supposed to hear her voice again. That's why we chose a torpedo, not a tribunal. Suddenly, his phone vibrated. An internal ping code read level. A message from Fleet Command's Intelligence Division. Subject, Monroe. Active clearance restored, temporary status. Advisor to Nightshade alert. All personnel to treat CMDR Monroe as protected status, by order of the Chief of Naval Operations. Kent's jaw tightened. They reinstated her? She walked into Fleet Command with Nightshade at her back, Weller muttered. She didn't give them a choice. In a high-security chamber beneath the Naval War College, Tessa Monroe stood beside Commander Juno. Ray as Admiral Patterson entered. Patterson had served for 30 years and was one of the few voices left untouched by Kent's reach. He closed the door behind him, his eyes fixed on Tessa. "You're either the bravest damn woman in this country," he said, "or the most reckless." Tessa didn't blink. "Both, sir." Patterson nodded. "We vetted the files. Everything checks out. What you uncovered could bring down a dozen careers, possibly more." Juno stepped in. "That's not our goal. We want exposure, not chaos. Transparency with control." Patterson said. "Kent's already mobilizing his allies. They're trying to bury this under procedural mud. They're arguing it's a rogue whistleblower action." "Then unbury it," Tessa said. "Put me in a courtroom. Put him in the witness box." The Admiral raised a brow. "A court-martial? I want him under oath," she said. "In public, let him lie with cameras rolling." Patterson considered it. "You do realize if you push this too far, you'll become the story. They'll twist everything." "I've already been sunk once," she said. "I won't drown quietly." That week, the Pentagon approved an emergency military tribunal. The case would be handled behind partially closed doors, half open to public transparency, half sealed for national security. But Kent had no intention of walking into that room in a clandestine bunker in Nevada. He met with a private intelligence broker. "I want options," he said. "There's always an option," the broker replied, sliding forward a document labeled Phoenix Protocol. Kent opened it. Inside was a kill list people who had received the leaked data, including Tessa, Juno Ray, 2 senators, a federal judge, and an internal Navy AI analyst named Porter Lynn. Kent looked up. "Too public, then disappear her again," the broker said. "This time don't miss." Juno was the first to notice something was wrong. The night before the tribunal, her encrypted access to Navy channels began failing. Her access card failed 3 security doors. Her messages bounced. When she called Tessa's secure satellite line, it rang once, then cut out. Rodriguez was monitoring drone feeds when he saw it. 4 unmarked tactical vehicles approaching the Valkyrie's off-site staging compound near Chesapeake Bay. Breach. Alert. He yelled by the time they got boots on the ground. The vehicles were gone. But Tessa was missing in a concrete holding cell beneath an abandoned warehouse. Tessa awoke handcuffed to a rusted chair. 2 men stood in the shadows. One clicked a lighter. The flame briefly illuminated Kent's face. "I always admired your fire, Monroe," he said. "I never thought you'd be the one to burn it all down." Tessa smirked. "You think this silences me? My voice is already echoing in more ears than you can stop." Kent approached, calm and quiet. "This isn't about silence. It's about certainty. You gambled that someone would protect you. But protection runs out." Tessa's wrists bled from the cuffs, but her voice was steady. "You're scared. That's why you're here." "I'm here," he said, "because I'm cleaning up a mistake." He raised a syringe, small, clear, fast-acting. But as he stepped forward, the walls exploded inward. Nightshade stormed the compound in full assault gear. Flashbangs lit the room. Tessa fell to her side as Juno barreled through the smoke and shot Kent's syringe hand clean off with a single round. Kent screamed, collapsing to the ground. Juno didn't hesitate. She pressed a boot on his throat. "You never saw the knife coming," she whispered back at Norfolk Command. Kent was cuffed, sedated, and flown under armed guard to the tribunal site. His lawyers scrambled, but the damage was irreversible. Tessa walked into the courtroom with her head held high. Juno flanked her, battle-worn but alive. The judge read the charges. Conspiracy to assassinate a naval officer. Tampering with military systems. Sale of classified defense technologies. Unauthorized strike on U.S. Navy vessel. Tessa stood to give her testimony, The room fell silent. For years, she said, I believed the system would fix itself. That if I just followed orders, truth would prevail. But it doesn't. Truth needs teeth. She turned to Kent, bruised and bandaged, seething in his seat. You taught me that. The crowd watched, enraptured. No one interrupted her. This isn't just about a ship or a torpedo. It's about every person who's been silenced, erased, or buried for daring to say, something's wrong. This time, we dragged it into the light. Kent was found guilty on all counts. He was dishonorably discharged and sentenced to life in a federal black site prison with no access to communication systems. But Tessa knew it wasn't over, because the system hadn't just failed. Once it had failed for decades. Now, she had the power to change it. Tessa stood on the deck of the Valkyrie, watching the morning sun rise over the Atlantic. The sea looked calm, but she didn't trust calm anymore. Calm had lied before. Below deck, her team was rebuilding more than hardware. They were repairing trust. Every bolt replaced, every code line rewritten, was a statement. We are still here. Juno Ray stepped up beside her, holding 2 cups of bitter Navy coffee. She handed one over. Still thinking about Kent? She asked. Tessa didn't answer right away. I'm thinking about how close we came to losing everything. Again. He's in a box. No signal. No access. Boxes break, Tessa muttered. Men like him always have levers stashed in dark corners. Juno nodded. Which is why we don't stop. In Washington, D.C., a closed-door session of the Senate Intelligence Committee was underway. Rear Admiral Patterson sat before them. Flanked by 2 Department of Defense investigators and a forensic data expert, Senator Renner leaned forward. You're telling us that for over 6 years, the Navy's own AI-based strike prediction systems were altered to allow unauthorized targeting? The forensic analyst nodded. Correct. The AI, codenamed Oracle, was tampered with to classify non-hostile vessels, including domestic assets, as legitimate threats under modified protocols. And Commander Monroe's vessel was among those targets? Yes, we verified that. Override codes matched those approved under Admiral Kent's personal clearance chain. Senator Cho, younger and known for siding with defense contractors, interrupted. This is unprecedented. Do you understand the implications? Hundreds of operations may have been compromised. Our allies could demand audits. Some might claim war crimes. Patterson leaned forward. Then let them. Because if we don't clean our own house, someone else will. At Naval Cyber Command, a whistleblower named Porter Lynn worked late into the night. He was one of the analysts who had first noticed Oracle's discrepancies. For years, he'd kept quiet, fearing retaliation. Now, with Kent gone and Tessa's case validating his suspicions, he dove into the raw logs. What he found was worse than expected. Oracle hadn't just been altered. It was still being used. Unauthorized queries. Hidden branches of code. Someone else was still accessing the corrupted system. He flagged it and sent an encrypted alert straight to the Valkyrie's command channel. On the ship, Tessa opened the alert. From Porter Lynn, NCC-8 subject. Oracle still compromised. Live. Access detected. Possible second operator. Tessa's jaw tightened. We didn't cut the head. We just got one of the snakes. Juno read over her shoulder. Then we find the next one. Tessa looked at her crew. Every one of them had risked everything to expose one admiral's betrayal. Now, they were staring down a ghost they hadn't seen coming. She raised her voice. Full system lockdown. Route all Oracle-linked pathways to our sandbox. Rodriguez, you trace those pings. I want to know where they're coming from. Rodriguez's fingers flew across the keyboard. It's bouncing through military satellites? No. Obvious source. Then trace the anomalies, not the origin, Tessa said. Find the fingerprint. Hours later, Rodriguez called them all to the war room. He displayed a single name across the screen. Rear Admiral Miriam Vance, Joint AI Systems. Oversight Council, Department of Naval SDRAT. Gino swore. I know her. She's been pushing for total AI autonomy for years. If she inherited Kent's network, she could control every strike decision from a laptop. Rodriguez nodded. And she's good. Buried in 7 layers of encryption. But I isolated one packet that slipped. She's planning something, maybe another false flag. Tessa didn't hesitate. We're not waiting for the next torpedo. They flew into D.C. under temporary clearance, landing at the Naval Strategy Building just after midnight. Patterson met them at the gate, already briefed. Vance is untouchable on paper, he warned. You'll need undeniable proof. We've got it, Tessa replied. But she'll bury it before we get 10 feet into her office, unless we act now. Inside, they moved fast. Juno hacked into Vance's personal terminal, while Tessa and Patterson kept security at bay. Encrypted logs, real-time commands to Oracle, and pre-programmed attack protocols flooded the screen. Then they found it as scheduled. Autonomous strike against a classified offshore threat. But the GPS coordinates? They pointed to a refugee convoy in the North Atlantic. Patterson grabbed a red emergency line. Abort strike protocol Alpha 7. This is a live override. Authorization Patterson Delta 7. Silence, then. Override. Accepted. Strike aborted. Tessa stood behind him. She was going to murder civilians. Blame it on insurgents. Create a panic. Juno added, and justify full AI combat implementation across the fleet. The next morning, Admiral Miriam Vance was escorted from her office in cuffs, surrounded by federal agents and Navy MBs. Her trial was scheduled alongside Kent's as part of a new special military crimes tribunal. But for Tessa, it wasn't enough. She stood before the press outside the courthouse steps, flanked by her crew. You've heard about AI failures. You've heard about rogue systems. But it wasn't the system that went rogue, it was the people behind it. She looked into the camera. Until human corruption is held accountable at every level, no machine will ever be safe. Inside the Pentagon, new orders were signed by Fleet Command. Project Oracle was to be suspended indefinitely. All autonomous strike programs were paused. And Commander Tessa Monroe was appointed as a civilian military oversight liaison for AI ethics. In naval warfare, she didn't ask for the job, but she accepted it because silence had almost killed her once. She didn't intend to be quiet again. Months after the trials and the suspension of Project Oracle, Tessa Monroe found herself on a new mission, not one of combat, but of vigilance. The Navy had appointed her liaison for AI ethics and operational transparency. It was a political tightrope, but one she was determined to walk. The calm of her office in Norfolk was shattered one evening by a call from Juno Ray. Tessa. Juno's voice was urgent. We've got chatter about a rogue operation in the Pacific. Unmarked vessels, unauthorized strikes. Same tech signatures from the Kent and Vance networks. Tessa's mind raced. How soon? Already underway. Our contacts spotted a convoy about to be targeted near the Spratly Islands. Tessa stood. Then we don't have time to wait for paperwork. They mobilized a small task force, leveraging the Valkyrie as a command ship. Juno led the operational team. Tessa coordinated from the bridge. As the task force approached the coordinates. Satellite images revealed a flotilla of shadow boats, equipped with military-grade weapons but no identifiers. Civilians aboard were huddled, unaware of the approaching danger. Grant studied the feeds. These vessels are moving fast, autonomous, just like Oracle was designed to control. But no official orders. Tessa frowned. Who's pulling the strings? Juno tapped into the electronic signals. tracing communications through a web of proxies and satellite relays. Private military contractors, she said grimly, operating under the radar, but with access to military-grade AI. It's the perfect storm. A task force closed in under cover of darkness. The Valkyrie deployed drones for reconnaissance, gathering real-time data. Tessa watched as Juno coordinated the intercept, balancing aggression with caution. Suddenly, radar blipped. Multiple fast-moving objects converged on the convoy. Missiles inbound, Rodriguez warned. They're locking on. Evasive maneuvers now, Tessa ordered. The convoy scattered, but the shadow boats opened fire, cutting through the night with deadly precision. The Valkyrie's crew engaged defense protocols. Drone interceptors took out 2 incoming missiles before they could strike. Juno's voice was steady. We're here to protect, not escalate. Hold fire unless fired upon. Tessa nodded, though her heart pounded. The stakes were higher than ever. Amid the chaos, a boarding team from the Valkyrie stormed one of the shadow boats. They found encrypted servers and weapons caches clear, evidence of illegal operations. The captain of the Shadow Fleet was nowhere to be found. Back on the Valkyrie, Tessa reviewed intercepted communications. Listen to this, she said, playing a voice recording. We move forward with Phase 2. Operatives in place. No loose ends. The Admiral's directive stands. Juno's eyes narrowed. Kent's network is still alive, just hidden deeper. Tessa clenched her fists. So is the war. The Navy launched a formal investigation, aided by Tessa's team. The operation exposed a tangled web of corruption, where contractors, rogue officers, and shadow networks conspired to wield AI as a weapon for personal gain. Public outcry was fierce. Congress demanded sweeping reforms, and the Navy announced an overhaul of oversight on autonomous systems. Tessa testified before Congress, urging transparency and accountability. We cannot allow technology to outrun our ethics, she said. Nor can we let power shield those who misuse it. Despite victories, Tessa knew the fight was far from over. Late one night, alone in her quarters, she received an encrypted message. The sea hides many secrets, some we've yet to uncover. Stay vigilant. It was from Marcellus Ray, her mentor. Still working in the shadows, Tessa smiled faintly. The ocean was vast, unpredictable, and so was Justice Dot. She was ready. The courtroom lights dimmed as the final session of the Special Military Crimes Tribunal commenced. Months had passed since the explosive revelations. The Navy, battered by scandal, was forced to confront not just a few rogue officers, but a culture of secrecy and unchecked power. Tessa Monroe sat at the witness stand, poised, her expression calm but resolute. Around her, dozens of high-ranking officials, senators, and military lawyers awaited her testimony. She began, voice steady. For too long, the sea was a silent witness to crimes committed under the guise of national security. The system protected the powerful while punishing the brave. Her words echoed through the chamber. Kent's defense team argued fiercely, claiming operational necessity and national security risks. But the evidence was overwhelming: corrupt contracts, falsified orders, illegal strikes. Juno Ray's testimony corroborated Tessa's accounts of shadow operations, drone strikes, and cover-ups. Outside the tribunal, protests erupted nationwide, citizens demanding transparency, reform, and accountability. Tessa became a symbol of courage, inspiring those who believed the military could serve the people with honor. But inside, the fight was personal. Kent, shackled and pale, glared at Tessa. You think you won, he spat quietly. But power is a tide, it always comes back. Tessa met his gaze without fear. Not if we keep rowing against it. The tribunal concluded with landmark rulings. Kent was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Admiral Vance and several contractors faced lengthy sentences. New legislation mandated civilian oversight over all autonomous military operations. Tessa was offered command of a new naval ethics task force, charged with preventing future abuses. She accepted, knowing the sea's vastness mirrored the ongoing struggle for truth. Months later, aboard the Valkyrie, Tessa watched the horizon as dawn broke. Juno joined her on deck. Ready for the next mission? Tessa smiled. Always. The Navy's future depends on those willing to face the tides, no matter how rough. The sun rose higher, casting golden light over the waves. The ocean was vast and unpredictable, but so was hope. The end.